One of the things that Nintendo fans have been asking and clamoring for is a brand new Banjo Kazooie game. But sadly, as time passes, it seems to be even less of an opportunity and something that essentially will most likely not end up happening. And now, thanks to a recent developer interview by Video Games Chronicles, it seems to be like this is really going to come into fruition, where essentially the developers have moved on to other better pastures, and the franchise will most likely not end up getting another sequel or prequel or any sort of new games. Obviously, maybe some sort of remasters or whatever with modern gen consoles in mind, but nothing that players are really hoping to see. I'm going to be leaving a link in the description below for about the hour-long developer interview from Video Game Chronicle with both the, of course, always popular composer Grant Kirkhope and the lead programmer for the games, Chris Sutherland. They did about an hour-long video interview, and they give a lot of details. They discuss a lot of things regarding not just the original Banjo Kazooie, but the sequels as well, and all encompassing the 25-year-old history of the franchise and where it stands now. Now, a lot of players will instantly jump to the conclusion that maybe this is something related with Nintendo, maybe not wanting to, get involved with a sequel. Obviously, now Rare is owned by Microsoft, but this is not even Microsoft's call. And this is not even Rare's call at the end of the day. It seems to be just like the developers have decided to move on and they want to do something different, and they are working on different things. So at the end of the day, maybe we are not going to get something new in the franchise. Probably them porting over the games to modern consoles is the best we can hope for, and move on from there. Once again, link in the description below for the original article and the video that they did, an entirely almost hour-long interview. The article simply says, lying to Nintendo and Miyamoto's shame, Banjo Kazooie developers reflect on its 25th anniversary. The Nintendo 64 classic Banjo Kazooie turns 25 years old, and Video Games Chronicles spoke to some of the game's original creators to reflect on its legacy and unearth some of the previously unheard anecdotes about its creation. The 3D platformer, developed by a small team in UK based by Rare, was first released on Nintendo 64 June 29th in 1998. Wow, almost, over 25 years ago by now, which is a very, very long time in gaming standards. It still amazes me that people still care about it, said lead programmer Chris Sutherland in their lengthy video interview, which covers the development of the game and it's time the developers had to lie to Nintendo about impending delay and the embarrassing incidents involving Shigeru Miyamoto at an early E3 party. Obviously, it has an importance to us, but every 5 years, people still want to talk about it and celebrate it. And it's always important for me to do that, because at some point, I won't be able to remember anything about it anyways, said, of course, Chris Sutherland. Composer Grant Kirkhope added that the fact that it's been 25 years and people are still talking about it still amazes me. It feels like 6 months would have gone, but I really feel like it was a good time for the team. We gelled together at the right point. We were all mates. We went out together. We drank together. We did everything together. So it felt like that humorous in the game is that everyone talks about, and it's just taking a piss out of a daily basis and down the corridor. Character designer Stephen Mills said that he believes the autonomy and the development the team Rare had in the 90s, when fewer than 20 people could ship a blockbuster game, had a lot to do with how special Banjo feels even 2 decades past. I wouldn't have been able to be there working on my own if we just had to constantly be getting everything checked and approved. It was, here's a few lines describing a character. It may be a funny picture Greg Miles had drawn, and you were off. He added, I don't think that work now with AAA projects if Banjo Kazooie was remade, because things take so much longer to make. But in those days, it was a big part of it for sure. On the subject of remakes, we asked the developers why they thought that despite Banjo Kazooie's enduring popularity with fans, a 2019 Smash Bros. Reveal received a rapturous receptions, and it has been so long since a new entry was released. Surprisingly, none of the three thought a revival was likely. And they said, I can't really speak for Greg Miles, Rare's creative director, but he really is the custodian of the franchise. He doesn't really like to look back and tread over old ground, so I don't think there's ever been bothered about doing anything else with the franchise. He'd rather move on to new experiences. As far as he's concerned, he's been there, done that. Kirkhope said that he didn't think Banjo 3 would ever happen. I feel like it would have to get the team with the humor that we had back then, and that's hard to replicate, he said. I think Rare would be open to somebody if they were found the right team, but I don't feel that team exists. Also, I'm not convinced the audience is there either. Sutherland added, I would hope that somebody is going to bring out something like some kind of sequel in the next in-line game, but at least before a point where I can still remember that the first one existed, but hopefully sooner. So pretty much the developers are full on admitting, or at the very least some of the people, especially one in Miles, where they simply say, kind of like the people who are in charge are not necessarily full on with the idea of them making the game, them making the next mainline installment or even a sequel or a spin-off or anything along those lines, but perhaps a brand new team should be able to take over. But like they mentioned also in the article, maybe that team doesn't quite exist yet or hasn't been put together. Maybe in the future, once you would imagine Microsoft can kind of get a hold of its footing with this entire chapter that they're going through, where they're buying studio after studio and hopefully trying to get exclusives down the road, they could actually get something together where they're actually continually releasing games on a steady pace. They don't necessarily have to sit there and let them cook for 4 to 5 years and actually, get something worthwhile out there. Maybe by that point, a development team can be put together to do something with Banjo, but it doesn't necessarily seem like that's even on the cards for right now, because even the main people in charge don't necessarily seem to make it a priority. We know that Rare is working on several things already, a few of which have already been revealed. We also know they have Sea of Thieves under their belt as well. So at the end of the day, it just doesn't necessarily seem to be one of those things they're too interested in doing. We know Grant Kirkhope has been doing many things, specifically things that have been releasing on the Nintendo Switch as well. So, they're too busy in other projects to even oversee this. This kind of reminds me of like what Nintendo did with Splatoon. They originally had an idea for what Splatoon would have been. It was going to be something completely different. Then this entire new team was put together and they basically took it a different direction. They did something different with it. And at the end of the day, that's where they flourished an entirely new development team, a brand new cycle. And we have seen now 3 separate games in a span of less than 10 years. So it has been extremely successful for them. So this is something that Microsoft could potentially replicate in the future. You wouldn't necessarily expect them to spend a ridiculous amount of money, like you hear now, 50, 100, 200 million dollars on a game, because it's not going to be a super photorealistic Final Fantasy 16 looking type of game. It's going to be one of those, silly platformer type of experiences that we have seen many indie games tackle, but with, of course, better, flourish, experience, and, of course, comedy tied behind it. But that's about all the information that I have for you guys today. I know those Banjo fans that are hoping for maybe some exciting news might not be too happy to hear these news, but at the end of the day, the people in charge are the ones making the call, and perhaps the franchise is better put to rest so they can focus on other things. If you're brand new to my channel, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Hit the bell to receive notifications when the videos go up. And as always, thank you so much for watching. See ya.